A $12 Scotch in a plastic bottle just outscored a $180 single malt in a blind tasting. A $25 bottle beat every Scotch on the table, including bottles at $300 and $400. 3 of the top 5 finishers cost less than the sales tax on the bottles they beat. I put 10 Scotches under $30 against single malts retailing for $200, $300, some over $400. Blind tasting. No labels, no price tags, just liquid in identical glasses. The expensive bottles didn't just lose, they got humiliated. Today, I'm revealing all 10 bottles that did the damage, exactly what they beat, and the scores that prove it. If you've spent serious money on single malt Scotch, I'm sorry for what you're about to see. Quick context on how this worked, so you know the results are legitimate. 20 Scotches total, 10 under $30, 10 over $200, all poured into identical Glencairn glasses labeled only with numbers. Nobody, including me, knew which glass held which Scotch until scoring was complete. Each whiskey was scored on 4 criteria: nose, palate, finish, and overall impression. 1 to 10 scale for each. Maximum score of 40. No discussion between tasters until all scores were locked in. Then the reveal. What you're about to see are the 10 budget Scotches that scored higher than single malts, costing 10 times more. Starting with number 10. Number 10, Johnnie Walker Black Label, $28, already making the Scotch snobs uncomfortable. It outscored Glenmorangie Signet, a $280 single malt, not by a tiny margin either. Black Label scored 31 out of 40. The Signet scored 28. When the labels came off, the smoke, the dried fruit, the clean malty sweetness of Black Label just presented better than a bottle that costs 10 times more. Johnnie Walker Black is the most disrespected Scotch in the enthusiast community. Everyone thinks they've graduated past it. Nobody has, and the blind tasting data keeps proving that. Number 9, Monkey Shoulder, $25, a blended malt made from 3 Speyside distilleries. It beat the Dalmore 18-year, a $250 bottle that comes in a box fancier than most people's furniture. Monkey Shoulder is built for flavor, not for packaging. Vanilla, honey, baked apple, a gentle spice that finishes clean. It doesn't have the depth of a 20-year-old single malt. It doesn't need it, because when the labels were off, depth didn't matter. Enjoyability did, and Monkey Shoulder is one of the most purely enjoyable Scotches at any price. Number 8, Naked Malt, $27. This one has a backstory. It used to be called Naked Grouse, a budget-blended malt that Scotch enthusiasts loved as a guilty pleasure. Then they rebranded it, gave it a cleaner bottle, and somehow nobody noticed that a $27 Scotch had gotten even better. It beat Macallan 15 Double Cask. If that name doesn't mean anything to you, Macallan is the brand that sells bottles at auction for millions of dollars. Their 15-year expression is considered a benchmark for sherry cask Scotch, and Naked Malt outscored it. Rich toffee, dried orange peel, a sherry sweetness that's almost identical to the Macallan profile at less than a quarter of the price. The tasters couldn't tell the difference. Number 7, Aberfeldy 12, $30. Let me put this one in perspective. Highland Park, 25-year, spends a quarter century in oak. It costs $300. It carries one of the most respected names in Scotch. Aberfeldy 12 spends 12 years in oak. It costs $30. Most Americans can't even pronounce the name. Aberfeldy scored higher. Honeyed, creamy, with this waxy texture that makes it feel more expensive than it is. The finish is warm and lingering without any of the harshness young Scotches sometimes carry. This is what happens when a distillery invests in liquid instead of marketing. Nobody's lining up for Aberfeldy. It just sits there, $30, better than bottles at 10 times the price, waiting for someone to notice. Number 6, Lismore, 18-year, $22. Read that price again. $22 for an 18-year-old Scotch. That's not a typo. That's not a sale. That's the actual retail price. It beat Glenfarclas 25 at $200. Soft, approachable, with a gentle sweetness and enough oak character to remind you it spent 18 years in a barrel. At $22, for 18 years of aging, the value equation is obscene. We're halfway through and the trend is clear. Price has almost nothing to do with what tastes best when the labels come off. If that's news to you, you're exactly who this channel is for. I break down the whiskey industry's biggest lies every single week. Subscribe now, because the number 1 bottle on this list didn't just beat the expensive Scotches. It beat everything, and you need to see what it is. The first 5 were warm-ups. The next 5 are the bottles that genuinely shocked me. Number 3 is a Scotch that retails for $19 and beat a $400 bottle. And number 1, when we revealed the labels, one of the tasters actually laughed. laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Number 5. Laphroaig Select, $28. This is where it gets uncomfortable for brand loyalists. Laphroaig Select beat Laphroaig 25-year at $400. Same distillery, same peat, same water source. The younger, cheaper bottle scored higher. Laphroaig Select uses a combination of casks, bourbon barrels, sherry, and virgin oak, that creates a layered smokiness most people don't expect from an entry-level Islay. It's got the medicinal peat Laphroaig is famous for, but rounded out with this unexpected vanilla sweetness that makes it more balanced than the 25-year expression. The 25-year-old has more complexity, more oak, more age, but more isn't always better when you're tasting blind. Sometimes balance beats depth. And at $28 versus $400, this is the most embarrassing result on the list for the premium Scotch market. Number 4. Clan MacGregor, $12. Plastic bottle, bottom shelf at every grocery store in the country. The Scotch you buy when you're in college and can't afford anything else. The Scotch snobs use as an example of everything wrong with cheap whiskey. It outscored Oban 18-year, $180, a distillery that's been making whiskey since 1794. I'm not going to pretend Clan MacGregor is a masterpiece. It's simple, light grain, a hint of malt, clean finish, but blind tasting strips away every bias, every assumption about what a plastic bottle should taste like. And when all of that disappears, Clan MacGregor's simplicity becomes its weapon. There's nothing offensive, nothing harsh, nothing that makes you wince. And apparently, that's enough to beat a $180 bottle that's trying so hard to impress you that it forgot to be enjoyable. Number 3. Speyburn 10, $19. I teased this one earlier. Beat a $350 bottle. Wasn't close. Speyburn 10 is one of those Scotches that serious whiskey people know about and everyone else walks past. Made in a tiny Speyside distillery that doesn't spend a dime on marketing. Every dollar goes into the liquid. Green apple, honey, a gentle heather note that screams Highland Scotland, and a finish that's clean and inviting. It beat Balvenie 21 Port Wood, a bottle that whiskey collectors put on pedestals, and it did it for $19. The data doesn't lie. Number 2, Deanston 12, $30. This is the Scotch I recommend more than any other to people who drink bourbon and think they don't like Scotch. It beat Glendronach 21 Parliament, $320, one of the most respected sherry cask Scotches in the world. Here's what makes Deanston different. It's non-chill filtered, natural color, and matured in ex-bourbon barrels. That bourbon barrel influence gives it a honey and vanilla sweetness that bourbon drinkers immediately recognize and love. But underneath, there's this malty, biscuity character that's uniquely Scottish. It's a bridge between two worlds, and at $30, it's the best value single malt available in America right now. I'll fight anyone on that. Number 1. The Scotch that didn't just beat every expensive bottle on the table, it beat everything. The highest score of any whiskey in the entire tasting, and it cost $25. Ardbeg 10. Ardbeg 10 is what happens when a distillery refuses to compromise. It's an Islay single malt, heavily peated, intensely smoky. But beneath that smoke, there's a complexity that bottles 5 times the price can't match. Citrus peel, dark chocolate, espresso, ocean brine, and a finish that evolves for minutes. Most cheap Scotch gives you 1 or 2 flavors. Ardbeg 10 gives you a dozen, and each sip reveals a new one. When we revealed the labels, one of the tasters looked at the Ardbeg bottle, looked at the score sheet, and laughed. Not because it was funny, because he just scored a $25 bottle, higher than everything on a table that included Scotches at $300, $350, $400, and he couldn't argue with his own numbers. That's what blind tasting does. It takes away the story, the packaging, the price tag, the prestige, and it asks one simple question: what actually tastes the best? The answer cost $25, and it's available right now at every decent liquor store in the country. 10 Scotches, not a single one over $30. Every one of them outscored a single malt at 10 times the price when the labels were removed. Total cost of all 10 budget bottles? About $250. That's less than the price of one single bottle they beat. Price doesn't predict quality. Branding doesn't predict quality. Age statements don't predict quality. The only thing that predicts quality is what happens in your mouth when you don't know what you're drinking. And the Scotch industry really doesn't want you to figure that out. I need to hear from you on this one. Which of these budget scotches have you tried? And which one are you picking up this week? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to see what happened when I ran this same experiment with bourbon, 10 bottles under $20 against $200 allocated bottles, that video is coming next week. The results were even worse for the expensive bottles. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.